by a want to be, a wannabe hegemonic power next door. And it's important to take that up because it is really setting the tone for our responses and creating a very dangerous and loaded environment in the region where two nuclear countries that share a border in a contested, disputed region up in the north, obviously Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, are at loggerheads. Now, before I say anything, I want to say something about the use of narrative. I think Pakistan is not really dabbling in a narrative only. Our diplomacy is based on ground realities. It is based on fact rather than fiction, which is, and fiction is what India has been unfortunately peddling its entire political and doctrinal shift on in terms of foreign policy. So this is a huge turn that has been taken, and it led to, you saw a limited war in the region, something that redefined deterrence dynamics also. But it created what I suggest is this strategic new abnormal in the region, which India and Modi's particular cabinet insists on calling the new normal. Well, we showed them that we are not going to let anyone else define a new normal for us. This has happened in many ways. You've seen General Asimoni's proactive diplomacy. You have seen the Prime Minister and the Foreign Office also very active in the region. And then you saw our delegation go from capital to capital at a key time for Pakistan's public responses to be heard. And I think it was a very crucial time for us to be there because we did notice that there was a deficit, a diplomatic deficit in Pakistan aggressively telling its story. We were not only using a narrative, we were speaking of ground realities which were not shared. I say this word narrative with a little hesitation because narrative can't be the basis of your diplomacy. And we have to be very clear that we are speaking of changed realities that have not become a window into the real and very changing Pakistan that we live in today. Our youth demographic is huge. They are entitled to have a voice, and we also have where we positioned Pakistan as a moderate, medium power in the region, which is emerging in its own dynamic, both demographic, economic, and future-based, as an actor that can be a bridge, a pivotal bridge between contested regions, countries, and even diplomacies, right? So we were in a place that was actually a crisis. We went literally into the epicenter of a crisis, a diplomatic crisis, and when countries deploy smart diplomacy, and obviously this involved everybody across the board, the smart diplomacy means using crisis as an opportunity. And there were many stories to tell. There were many contested norms to take issue with, which India was very aggressively through, from entertainment to its mainstream channels, defining as the new normal. Now, the weaponization of water, of television during the war, which was really fiction-based, has created a gap and a disconnect in their own country between normality and reality. So they've got now what is known as a commitment trap. The Modi government has fallen into the commitment trap it made to its people, that it's, what is Pakistan? We're just going to go in there, ghus ke marenge, that was the term used in the inside, and they acted like breaching Pakistan's territorial sovereignty was child's play for them. Well, they got a very befitting response. And that happened in 2019 as well. But I think that lesson was not internalized. What is dangerous today is I think they're still resisting internalizing the lesson from this war as well, from the May encounter as well. You must have seen how 3 months later, and the Indian Air Force, one of the defense forces, suddenly came up with evidence of supposedly and allegedly, laughably, downing Pakistan's jets and presenting no evidence. So that already tells us that there is a deep disconnect in their society, in their political culture, and we rarely look at the bottom of the social pyramid of India. Half of India was shut down last month. It was called Bharat Map, and Pakistan didn't notice, against the Modi government, in protest. Even trains were not running for days on end. It was paralyzed. Now Modi has his own compulsions. One are that he is facing his 75th birthday, which is retirement mode in the BJP's own constitution, or perhaps their culture, and then the RNS centenary is coming up, and of course the Bihar election for him, which is already going south. The election commission's credentials in India are also up for contest, which never used to be the case, but increasingly their institutional architecture, political and democratic, has been fairly tainted. Then the other thing is that they have, obviously for the first time in this new abnormal that they're trying to define, have tried to weaponize water. We've seen how that went, and the intention behind it is absolutely malified. It has nothing to do with Pakistan's correspondence or Pakistan's responses to their ask on a review of treaty conditions based on changing realities. This treaty has stood the test of several wars, several deep wars. And it's an international treaty which they are residing from. So not only are they weaponizing water, which is a vital human resource, and defined as a humanitarian resource that is not normally contested. Transboundary rivers, once you start going there, become a problem then for the entity or country that is disputing transboundary rivers elsewhere. So if India finds it is becoming rogue even on treaties on water, then it will have its own comeuppance. It may not want to listen to the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague, which has repeatedly ruled in Pakistan's favor in terms of the treaty. They want to flout that, they want to flout multilateralism, they want to embrace now a dangerous unilateralism, which is their new, that's their new abnormal, that we will act unilaterally. That is not how the world works. And Pakistan has shown that is not how South Asia is going to work. We have made that abundantly clear, both in plain terms, in diplomatic language, in concepts of safety, conventional deterrence, and how nuclear weapons can be put at the risk of use, which is obviously what we normally call the great unthinkable. Somebody recently asked me in London, why do you think that peace is important? I said, because I don't want to wake up to a mushroom cloud for any generation. Okay? And I don't think anyone in Pakistan wants that. And yet India continues to deliver a message based entirely on coercive diplomacy. And that allows me to come to my third point, which is that the transformation of Indian society, culture, democratic traditions has actually led to this. And it is part and parcel of this narrative that they're adopting. We are not really adopting a narrative, we're delivering a message based on our reality. There is purely a fictional narrative based on what I call moditwa. It is worse than the Hindutva espoused by the BJP as a political party. We have seen BJP run India before in Mr. Vajpayee's regime. He still attempted to make peace with Pakistan on whatever terms, but that attempt and seeming political will was at least made apparent. We went to the Minar-e-Pakistan, that's an acknowledgement of Pakistan's, prosperity and obviously existence. And it's ridiculous that Pakistan's existence is even questioned, but it is today. I say this because in 2023, they have put, just 2 years ago, very 2 years ago, the Indian Parliament has installed a map of undivided India in its Parliament building, the Aan Bharat Map, which stretches from one side to another, erasing the sovereign boundaries of countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh and many others. That's some Ashokan conceit that they are going back to. Now, if you have that hanging in your parliament, people don't talk about it here. If you have that hanging in your parliament, then it will inspire these bizarre dreams and ambitions of regional hegemony, which they are not approximate to in terms of their hard and other power. Now, they should be confident that GDP is 7 times more than ours. So is their defense spending. But in this world, where technology has redefined both warfare and global interactions as well as trade, science is no more everything. It is not. It obviously matters, critical mass matters, but I think this particular encounter with Pakistan showed them a window into what could be a possible future. Now let's be very clear, Pakistan is not seeking that future. But to us, the bedrock of all of the disputes with India, water is a recent one. They have turned a treaty into a dispute. But the dispute has been over Jammu and Kashmir, which they continue to attempt to change in terms of status and conditions and demographics. The 35A that they try to bring in, and then obviously the special status 370 is of their constitution, is a clear indicator of this moditwa intent, the erasure of other countries' boundaries, the erasure of Kashmiri identity, culture, sovereign ability to determine their future as guaranteed by several United Nations resolutions is under the hammer in the Indian psyche. This new Indian psyche is being whipped up to believe that it can act this way. And Pakistan's really pushed back on its red lines. The red lines have been pushed back, and so has the diplomacy after a long time. I used to always find our diplomacy a little bit diffident in its outreach, in its global messaging, in even transmitting ground realities. I mean, you saw in terms of terrorism, you saw Majid Brigade and BLA being listed now internationally as terrorist groups. It's something we've been asking for a while. Good that it's happened, but what's happening in Balochistan, other than a local discontent, is something that India is fishing in troubled waters about. We did not find a serving military officer for nothing in Balochistan. Kulbhushan Yadav is not Italian, is he? He was not there selling mangoes. What was he selling? And that's not the only case. There have been several which we have not spoken about. Because, so much various things are involved. Now the point is that India has been meddling in Balochistan for years on end. And we have shared dossiers with the UN, which is why you see the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, change its listings for Pakistan. Now, if we were terrorist central, as their foreign minister likes to call us, then the FATF would not have changed their listing. Simple as that. And I'm just sticking to some very core points because of paucity of time. And that is what Chairman Bilawal Bhutto Zardari said also. He said in terms of terrorism, the entire world sees that as a transnational problem. It also uses evidence as reason for or trigger for any action. India refused to provide evidence, as you know. It refused to respond to Pakistan's Prime Minister's advice to take up the Pahalgam incident with a neutral investigator. And most importantly, it continues to use terrorism as a dog whistle to demonize Pakistan, build narratives, create its constituencies of discord all over the world, especially with the international media. And there, it has, as Chairman Bilawal said, put the future of Asia, not in South Asia, in the hands, literally, it's put it by refusing to cooperate or work together, like all countries, like the United States has done. It's called Pakistan, a tremendous partner in terrorism, in counterterrorism. That's how the whole world works. These are transnational issues, cyber terrorism, physical terrorism, climate change. These are all 21st century issues of borderless. These are problems without passports. And grown-up countries, I'm just using very simple language because I see a lot of young people here. Grown-up countries work with each other. This is the 21st century. This is not the end of the 19th or the 1930s. That's where India wants to take the region back to. That's the language it's speaking. Almost neo-fascist. Simple. And so it is willing to put the future of Asia, South Asia, its own people, in the hands of 4, 5 random terrorists who can operate from anywhere in the world, in the region, on a phone, on a satellite communication, and trigger and use it as trigger for war. Provide no evidence of Pakistan's footprints. 3 months later, you can trump up anything you like, but that's not taken seriously. And frankly, the world today is very connected, you like it or not. But if you look at a satellite map of the world, you'll see the entire blue globe covered in golden satellite webs. Every country did its own homework, from the Five Eyes to everything else. There are eyes everywhere now. They did their homework. Whatever they thought about Pakistan, they changed their minds. Didn't they? That's very obvious. I don't need to cite examples. So, India is a dangerous abnormal actor now. Irresponsible, totally not risk averse, and willing to create crises to deflect from domestic political downturns for its leadership, which is basically the gang of four around Modi. And they are not holding back on towards diplomacy, nor are they creating space for even making a ceasefire permanent. Why? I say this because when a leader goes on ahead and questions a ceasefire repeatedly and says it is fragile because, well, Pakistani young people can eat my roti or goli, which he said at a big jalsa, one of the rare appearances he's making within the country. What does that tell you? That they want to keep the region on the boil, they want to keep the region at war, and they want to insist on a very one-sided, unilateral, hegemonic set of terms which Pakistan will not, cannot, and shall not accept at any point. We don't need to. Yet we have always said that we want comprehensive dialogue with India, with every actor, not just India. To us, we are agnostic of who's in the region. And yet for that you have to create political space. You can't get up and go into a dialogue with the leadership of the other country spewing invective against you and also instigating volatility within their own country. I mean, you have people in moditwa gangs beating up Muslims left, right, and center over there. If that happens in Pakistan to any minority or religious minority or non-Muslim, we all raise our voice against it. It is not institutionalized here. I hope you all see that. Then it seems to have state sanction. These are, and so given its geostrategic behavior, given its political compulsions, the way it's behaved on water, the way it is demonizing Pakistan internationally, constantly, and finding a blank wall, that is the power of our diplomacy and effectiveness of our diplomacy, which is now, frankly, leading to a place where they see where they see nothing but a doctrine of permanent conflict as the way out for a beleaguered Modi regime. He has brought the Gujarat model to all of India. And if your students, you look at Christopher Jaffer-Lott's new book, it's called Modi's New India. He's also called it moditwa in the book. It's a very good, it's not brilliant, but it has its point. So there are four things I want to repeat as what India is trying to. I've written a sort of long read on it, a monograph on it, and I'm saying that this is a new abnormal why. This doctrine openly prioritizes confrontation over dialogue. It embraces conflict. It openly embraces conflict, and it wants to identify an enemy within the country and an enemy without. The enemy within are obviously Muslims right now, and sometimes other religious minorities. And the enemy without, well, it's here, it's Islamabad. So they seek to do this, and they use narrative building as a tool for hostile unilateralism in a hypercharged, nuclearized environment. Essentially, it hinges on the following key drivers to attempt to impose, and I say attempt to impose hegemony because they haven't been able to. In a region where it has met with challenge, clear challenge from Pakistan, and a denial of dominance in the military domain, which they were expecting to flex as part of their muscularity, kinetic muscularity. So one, Modi's India continually seeks to manipulate terrorism as a domestic and international dog whistle while fomenting and supporting instability inside Pakistan. That is totally unacceptable. And we will obviously fight back. Two, it negates all calls for bilateral or mediated diplomacy as a tool for engagement, which mature countries do, or problem solving, while targeting Pakistan with aggressive calls for isolation across multilateral forums. That is not happening either, as you can all see. Action as a coercive tool, from cross-border strikes to air-based attacks. That is immature, risk-prone strategic policy. It's not a doctrine based on power, it's a doctrine based on fear. Four, it embraces unilateralism as the only path on key disputes, including Kashmir. It weaponizes a settled Indus Waters Treaty by attempting to create irreversible facts on the ground. You know the other country which tries to create irreversible facts on the ground. Its partner, Israel. They do the same. Well, obviously, we are not who they think they are. My heart bleeds for Gaza, but that's not where we're going to let our country go. So, the view from many sides, including the international community, is that Pakistan's multi-domain response has changed more than one part of the game in what may have turned, I call it, a bonfire of Modi's strategic vanities. It's a real bonfire of their diplomatic and strategic vanities. India's grave misjudgment of its neighbors' readiness and resolve saw this unprovoked attack dressed up as opposition symbol. That has created a huge backlash within India and also re-established a new chapter in defense history as a spectacular display of conventional skill fused with cutting-edge technology by the Pakistan Air Force. The same Air Force is ready to meet any offense, as are the rest of our forces. It is unfortunate that we are having to speak in military language. Neither the military wants it, nor do our citizens want it. But we will not be sitting with our hands upon our hands, will we? It's time they heard our response. I am a peacemaker by DNA, especially for the region. There are 100 compulsions for peace in the region. But this kind of actor, I call it an actor because it's a rogue actor. Every action has defied international law. I'm sure you can list those out. This is not the time or place. But this is a rogue actor. And it's time to call it out as that. Thank you very much.